much more diverse population set and be able to make appeals in areas of Raleigh that I'm much more familiar with in my comings and goings to Raleigh.
My name is J.J. Summerell. I'm in Greensboro. I share the Guilford County delegation, and I ran for Congress in District 1, which is the far northeastern part of the state. And a lot of people said, why in the hell did you do that? That's impossible to win. Like your district is heavily gerrymandered Democrat. And the Republicans had told me they would not, the chair of the district told me they would not run a candidate. So that's one reason I ran. But then at the end, they redistricted this district and took in a little piece with a minister who wanted a moral option on the ticket. So there was a Republican in there. The incumbent Democrat, 7-term member, he's head of the Congressional Black Caucus, and would have been almost impossible to defeat. However, he was originally elected when a sitting senator from the same district was put into a federal judgeship. And his name is G.K. Butterfield. And he's getting older now. He's got grandchildren back in Wilson where he lives. And rumor has it he wanted out. And he was campaigning with Hillary 24/7 because there's a judgeship open in Wilson now. So if he had won and Hillary had appointed him to this judgeship, there would have been a special election, and I would have moved into the district at that point. But in the special election that Butterfield was originally elected in, there were less than 6,000 people, 6,000 votes in the largest geographic district in the state. And if we could get a 6,000 vote special election, we'd have something. I think we need to look for more of those types of opportunities.
My name is Lon Cecil. I live in Davidson County, and
we turn it up a little bit, please.
And would you stand up when it's your turn? We can't see you back there.
my name is Lon Cecil. I live in Davidson County. Started off in 2010. I ran in a little gerrymandered district called District 12 for U.S. House against an older statesman named Mel Watt that everybody seemed to already know. But fortunately, that time the Republican was living down in Washington, North Carolina, and he didn't show up for any of the public meetings, so everybody thought I was a Republican. But it was a good introduction, and I ended up right on the 2% line, so that emboldened me in 2016 to accept the challenge to run for North Carolina governor. And I had basically a year since I retired to do a lot of traveling around and stop and talk to anybody and everybody that I could. One of my favorite targets was the gun shows, in which I talked to people that were saying they were going to vote for Trump. And I said, well, vote for Trump, then vote for me and go home. Because they said, well, I've never voted before, but I got elected, I got registered, and I'm going to vote for Trump this year. I ended up with 102,000 votes. I was pleased the night of the election to get emails from both Republicans and Democrats yelling that I had forced the election to go to the wrong guy. It took over a month for that to all get settled out, but the main news out of it was when you look at the numbers that were reported to the state, the Republicans and the Democrats spent $5 per vote. We spent 10 cents per vote. So you can go through a lot of money. Doesn't necessarily mean you'll have control of it. I appreciate everybody here. Thank you.
So my name is Eric Rautzep, and I am running for NC House District 31 in Durham, North Carolina. Thank you. So I've actually never run prior to this. I've always been behind the scenes. I've worked in a lot of campaigns back when I used to be in the Republican Party and even some when after I come over to the Libertarian Party. So I have a lot of experience on the backside. This is my first time that I've ever run as the candidate. Let me tell you, that is a very different experience. and one that is absolutely amazing if you have the time and the energy to do it. And I highly, highly encourage anyone in this audience that is thinking about becoming a candidate to do so. The reason that I'm running is because I'm coming from Durham, and there's a lot of inequity that is in my county. And I see it on a day-to-day basis. Also, I'm a home inspector, and so business licensure is a huge issue for me because we have a shrinking population of home inspectors in one of the strongest real estate communities in the country. So it doesn't make sense, but that's what business licensure is doing. On top of that, small business ownership in Durham is one of the lowest counties in the state for small business or mom and pop businesses to actually exist. And a large part of that, again, is because of business licensure or how the entire process of opening up a small business is structured and the income levels of Durham. So these are things that I see as huge problems that the Libertarian Party can make a dramatic and immediate impact. And one of the great things that's going on in my campaign right now, and one thing that I'm getting up on every single rooftop to talk about, is that I'm currently out fundraising the Republican 8-to-1. So for every dollar the Republican is raising, I'm raising 8. And if that doesn't say something, that our message has legs, and we're getting out into those communities, and we're being heard, and we're making a difference already, there's nothing else that's going to be, that we can say there. The other thing also is that I have the Democrat running scared, because at one point, I was $640 behind the Democrat in fundraising, to the point where the state party had him refile because they gave him $20,000 from the state fund of the Democratic Party right into his fund. So again, we have the Democrats running scared in Durham, and I love to say it. Again, thank you. My name is Eric Rautzo.
I was happy because I got to speak before Brian, because I took a peek at the list of things he's run for, but I had to follow him, so either way. Anyway, Susan Hogarth. I've done the trifecta: State House, State Senate, County Commission in Wake County. I ran 15 years ago. I ran most of my things. I was the sort of hothead ideological candidate, which is a lot of fun. You go to forums and you say whatever you think, and it's awesome. And people really respond. The party's evolving, and we have candidates who still do that, and I think it's a valuable thing, actually, because people need to hear like a no bones about it libertarian message, and people really respond to that. We have candidates who are much more community oriented than I had the inclination or the time to be. My community is the Libertarian Party, so now I'm doing most of my service within the party. So it's great to see all these guys who are very community engaged and trying to talk to members of the community and run races where they are talking to people where they're at. But there is also a role for, if you feel like you're a hothead yourself, there's a role for you to go out there and just say what you think, as long as it's that, not accept the, believe in or advocate the initiation of force. So yeah, that's me.
My name is Brian Irving. I'm a Libertarian candidate for State Senate District 16 in Wake County. I had when Matt asked me to do this, I had to kind of go back and check my records to figure out how many times I've run for office, because I basically lost track. But my first race was for Cumberland County Commissioner in 2000. It was an interesting situation. We had just gotten on the ballot, and they had a special election because the incumbent died, and the commissioners appointed another Democrat to fill the seat, and they gave the other parties the opportunity. We got a letter, as chair of the county party, I got a letter from the Board of Elections saying, you can nominate somebody, but the executive committee has to pick the nominee, and it has to be in the district. The members of the executive committee have to live in the district that I was going to be running for, that you were going to nominate a person for. Well, there was only one person living in that district, me. So that's how I got involved. And then I quickly learned how, and I had been involved in local committee, retired military, I retired in Fayetteville. I knew the people even before because I spent time at Pope. And so, you know, they knew who I was and I knew they were. So that was an advantage. But I quickly learned how nasty politics can get, even at the local level, when the incumbent, the appointed incumbent, put up signs that said, re-elect Jeanette Council, or re-elect Council, that was a name. And, you know, they were actually her husband's signs, who had been on that same council several times before. So I got a call from the media asking me what I thought about that. And I was really kind of like I had no idea what I thought about it. I didn't tell them I really don't give a damn, but that's kind of what I said in a nicer way. So I learned quickly. The next race, a year later, I decided to run for Fayetteville City Council, a nonpartisan race, and thinking I was running, you know, to say you're running in the gerrymandered district is redundant because every district in North Carolina is gerrymandered. So I was running in a gerrymandered district, the incumbent had been there for, you know, forever, and an African American, and I strangely enough got support from people in the African American community who couldn't stand him because he had been in office for so long and really hadn't done anything. But I learned the hard way that being known in the community could be a good thing and a bad thing because another candidate filed, and so there was a primary, and I, of course, lost because the other candidate, besides the incumbent, was well known in this community and at the activist level. So that's the lesson I learned. And then I went on there and run for, most of my races, I ran for city council again, ran for county commission again, and then finally ran for state senate, and of course lost each time. The last senate race was against an incumbent Democrat. There was no Republican, so I got support from Republicans, monetary support. And I was still running, you know, the choice, the paper candidate campaign, not really raising money, going to the forums, which were a lot of fun. But attending the forums, it was me and a bunch of Democrats, not the incumbent. The only forum he showed up for was one at I think it was a kindergarten or first grade class. And we were sitting in these little chairs and the kids were asking us questions, which was really pretty, more interesting than I got at the adult forum. And he was there. And then I made a comment to the media about him not showing up for any of the forums, and he took offense at that. So, but at any rate, it was interesting. And the reason I'm running this time is because David Ulmer browbeat me into doing it. But the lesson is I am encouraged. What we're doing in Wake County needs to be done across the state. And I know it's going to be harder in rural counties. If you're going to run for office, you need to start building your county organization. And that's, I'm doing it because of what David and other people in Wake County are doing in other parts of the state. We're building our party, and that means putting people's faces out there.
Now, to speak to rural counties, we have our next panelist, which is our most recently elected Libertarian.
Hi everybody, my name is Christopher Nance, and I am the town commissioner for Carthage, North Carolina, which is in Moore County. During my campaign for town commissioner, there were 4 candidates running for 3 seats, and I managed to beat out one of the candidates by taking 19.78% of the vote. And the biggest thing that I think contributed to my win was that I involved myself in the community up to 1 year before I even announced that I was running. I positioned myself very well, I think, in order to secure that vote. I have no political experience other than political activism, so that's pretty much it for me. Thank you.
So the first question that I want to ask to pretty much all of the panelists, some of you answered it in your initial statement, but to those of you who didn't, what was your initial reason for deciding to run for office the first time?
Because David Ulmer made me. No, he wasn't responsible for that one. I'm sure David Ulmer regrets every minute. Anyway, but no, it was actually Brian Lewis. I met him at the state fair, and he asked me some crazy question. I gave him some crazy answer, and I showed up, and they said, "You want to be a candidate?" I said, "Sure." And I was a choice candidate, and then I realized, oh heck no. And my wife regrets every minute of that. So, yeah, I gotta thank my wife for being patient. It is miserable and it's hard. And I think when we talked 2 years ago about running, we didn't know how hard it was to find a campaign finance person and a website developer and a social media advisor and somebody to help you write those nasty comments about, you know, do you believe in this? Do you want to regulate that? No, 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 no. There's just so much work, and there was a lot that I didn't know I was getting into. And you need to surround your candidates with help. And I gotta thank God I have David Ulmer and Ken Pankowski and Amy Howard and Brian, so many people. It doesn't happen without help. And thank you. But what caused me to run? That was your question. What caused me to run? I was a teacher, and I was very disappointed, special ed teacher. Then I got into construction, and I realized that a lot of the guys that were running hammers right next to me, ankle deep in water, they would have been in my special ed classes. I might have been their teacher. And I noticed right next to me were black guys, Hispanic guys, and I noticed that business owners were Hispanic guys, and I noticed the people in the trailer running the organizations were white guys. And that made me angry. So Susan, she pointed out that we're in the community talking to folks. And she knows that I get right up to the line for not being libertarian every once in a while.
He's a little to our left.
I am a little to the left, but I grew up to the right. What matters is we broaden our message, and I need to make a change for my kids. Our nation has to change. It has to become the promise it never was. It never fulfilled the promise it was made. Make America great again. Let's make it better than it ever was. Better than Jefferson. So it's about messaging, folks. Anyway.
So, anybody else, why you want to run?
I can be very brief. I had several reasons for running. One of them, there was an issue called the Universal Basic Income or Basic Income Guarantee, where rather than giving out welfare benefits, we would give out a certain amount of money to everybody. That we get rid of 44 agencies in Washington. And Mike Munger helped me a great deal on developing the ability to talk about it. But I think it's an important option for us, particularly in trying to penetrate that African American community. Because like I said before, the district I ran in was 53%. And they were listening, for sure.
In my case, I decided that I'd been politically naive for a long time and needed some training. So as an engineer, the first thing you decide to do is to try something. And I looked at what they paid county commissioners, and that wasn't very much. They looked at the city councils, and I didn't live in the city. But there was this gorgeous opportunity for the U.S. House that if I won, would pay money, but otherwise I knew I could learn how to run the politics and get the experiences without embarrassing myself too much. And that's what drove me into the first one. The second time, I was driven in by JJ. But we needed 2% to stay on the ballot. under the laws at that point.
You got it.
I kind of jumped the gun and told you that during my first piece, so I'm not going to make you listen to my voice again.
I'm a Ron Paul Libertarian, and although I may look young, when I say Ron Paul Libertarian, I don't mean 2012. I mean 1988. So someone dragged me, I was living out in Kansas, and someone said, hey, you want to go see a presidential candidate speak? And I was like, hey, that's cool. So I go, and there was a room with maybe a fifth of the number of people in this room, and Ron Paul did Ron Paul's thing, and I was like, wow, I'd never heard the word libertarian. I read Ayn Rand, you know, but I'd never heard the word libertarian, and I was like, I is one. And I got very excited, then I backslid, but then I came back, and I wanted to talk to other people and to say something and have people say, I've never heard the word libertarian, but I am one. And that's what you get as a candidate, and it's a very powerful thing.
Yeah, the story I told was, it was an opportunity, but in Cumberland County, we had been planning to run candidates at some point. We just had an opportunity, but and that was kind of what motivated me. I'm a Barry Goldwater libertarian. I don't know why. You know, I've been one of those all my life type things. So when I left the military, I got involved in politics. Barbara and Sean Hall and a few other people not in this room were the ones that put me in the party. But, and so that's why I was running then. But I'll tell you what I'm running now, besides David's great work, is when I was growing up in the 60s, my father was a New Deal Democrat. This is my wife's story. I just learned this, but this is a technique. And my fondest memory of my dad, which I didn't have a very good relationship with, we were very close to him, but we watched the 1960 Democratic National Convention. For those of you who weren't born, that was John F. Kennedy's, and it was a near thing. It was back in the day when conventions, national conventions actually meant something. And out here was, you know, conservative Republican and a New Deal Democrat watching TV together. And so, but I remember how somewhat there were mean things said by Democrats against Goldwater and vice versa. But generally, Democrats and Republicans respected the other side. They assumed that they had honesty and they were sincere, and there was integrity involved, even though they would criticize the policy and there'd be the occasional attack edge, just before attack edge. We don't have that in our country anymore. We have two tribes that are constantly at war, and I would go so far as to describe them as gangs, the Republic Crips and the Democrats. And that's not what America is. We've always had differences, we've always had divisions, but we've always been able to come to reach common ground. So that's why I'm running this one, and that'll be my message. Now, unfortunately, I'm in a situation where there'll be a Democrat and maybe the Republican will show up occasionally. But I'm sure the Democrat will be demonizing the Republicans in the General Assembly. And I won't be defending the Republicans, but I certainly won't be not demonizing them or the Democrats.
I ran for town commission so that I could make a positive changes for my town, and to do my small part to end the duopoly.
The next question I'd like to ask is more general about fundraising. So some of you have done more fundraising than others, and I want to ask about how did you approach your fundraising? And what were your experiences as far as how your fundraising compared to your opponents? I'll let Eric.
So fundraising never stops. There is never a moment where my hand is not out. By the way, you can donate on routes@2018.com. No, it's just something that has to become part of your vernacular when you're talking. Whenever you're engaging in people, you ask for their support. You don't only ask for their vote in November, you also ask for a donation. You ask for them to become part of your volunteer list. It's a whole script that you go through, and if they show interest, you go deeper. And just because they say no today, you get their email address, and then next week, hey, have you gone to my website and made a donation yet? It's the same thing. It's a never-ending process. And of course, as you approach November, it's going to shift a little bit, but especially at this time of the campaign, it's a never-ending ask. You really have to have very little self-worth when it comes to things like this, because of course I kid, but no, I mean you were just kind of unscrupulous with the ask, and as long as you can be doing that, and it's part of your discussion constantly, first of all, you'll become much more comfortable with it, because let's be honest, politics is money. For us to get an effective voice out, media costs money. Yes, we get the earned media as well, but we're libertarians and we have to earn it twice as hard as the Republicans and Democrats do right now. And that's changing, and that's going to change rather quickly, but still, we've got to pay into our media right now, more than the other parties do. But that's the reason why fundraising is so vital to us.
Something Eric said, I'm no whiz at fundraising, and my campaigns were the kind of, you know, all right, I'll stand up. Do whatever Barbara tells me. Okay, that's why I'm actually a party member. I wanted to grow up to be just like Barbara. Still working on growing up, still working on being just like Barbara. So what I just wanted to say about fundraising is that Eric's thing kind of provoked these thoughts, and I've had them before. First of all, we're libertarians, so money is good. It's not bad. It's people's voice. So we shouldn't feel ashamed about asking people for money for our campaigns, because we're magnifying their voice by allowing them to give. The other thing is, when you're a candidate and you say to someone, you can contribute to my campaign, you're not saying, I want you to give me money because I'm having a good time running for office. You're saying, I'm doing the work. If you don't want to do the work, that's totally cool. I know you're really busy doing stuff, but you might happen to have $50 or $100, and so you can let me or Eric, do the work, and I will use that money to amplify your voice. So as candidates and as party members, we should never be reluctant or ashamed to ask each other and other people for time and money. And if they don't have the time, asking them to contribute money is a service to them, not a hardship to them. We're helping them by allowing them to contribute in the best way they can. That's all.
Next, I want to ask a bit more on a differentiated level about the different offices that we can run for. So, Christopher, Nance, I'd like you to answer specifically about the municipal level, about running for town. What did you find had the best bang for your buck as far as outreach methods?
The only elected position in my town is town manager.
No, she means
When you're like putting out, did you find it was important to put out signs in order to let people know who you are?
Oh, I wrote a list about this. All right. One of the important things you must do is to clean up your Facebook profile. Get all your drunken pictures off of there, all your embarrassing pictures off of there, because they will find them. Next thing I put was convince elderly people to support you, especially older ladies, because they will go behind the scenes and work magic spreading your name. I guarantee it. Happened to me. When you're engaging your voters, present yourself as being on the same level as them. Don't present yourself as a savior that's going to ease all their problems, because chances are you won't, but you'll do your best. Also, let the voters do the talking while you're talking to them. Lots of times, you'll just be able, they'll tell you their problems, they'll give that up to you quite easily. And you can offer up solutions to their specific problems and win them over that way. And I also think it's very important to run on principle before you run on the Libertarian Party. That's it.
So when I was on the Wake Executive Committee, running was very difficult, doing both at the same time. I stopped doing the executive committee so that I could pay more attention, and during that period we said that I should focus on outreach. So that's almost all I do anymore. I sometimes, and I feel a little bit embarrassed about this, I don't really go to as many Libertarian meetings as I need to. I'm going to tell you that. But people in the community are starting to trust me. I didn't even understand how much I wasn't trustable in my community. They still call me that funny guy. After 2 years of spending doing maybe 2 or 3 things a week, I'm in the community all the time. But they still call me that funny guy, but they got a respect for the idea that I'm there. And I'm paying attention to what really is important to them. It is not what is important to me that is critical. Can we recognize that we always like to be the smartest people in the room? Maybe not all of us, but I certainly like to be that guy. But I had to take a good, humble step back and say that I don't know crap about the lives of the people that I'm standing in front of. And I had, just to your point, Christopher, listening, yeah. If you're out there telling a Muslim all your opinions about Muslim issues in America, you're wrong. If you're a white guy going to a group of, some Baptist church somewhere, out in the woods, listen to them. You don't know where they live. You need to hear what they have to say. And you don't need just to figure out what the next talking point is. You need to understand them at a deeper level than you ever have before, because they know when you're not telling the truth. And if there's one thing that we can do that is totally different than the Republicans and Democrats, is we can really be genuine about caring for these people, the people that we want to represent, because we don't want to control their lives. We want them to control their lives. It's service to them. We are really deciding to be servants when we do this. So.
I'd also like to ask the same question, but on the opposite level to Lon Cecil. Having run a statewide campaign, what did you find was most effective and gave you the best bang for the buck?
The most effective thing for me was simply listening on a one-to-one basis with people. You had to ask them, what did they need, what did they want, what was their biggest problems in life that they felt that the governor could influence. And they would rather quickly open up and tell you about the coal ash issues or what was bothering them in their community. As far as fundraising, I was not very good at that, although I did find that if you would take someone and say that you needed a volunteer to work in their neighborhood, to get them to basically donate time, rather quickly they would succumb to, well, how about I just give you $50 or $100 and go from there. Organization was a big part of it. I had a campaign manager which took care of a lot of the communications issues, but most of the rest of it was directly me. So I did a lot of traveling and a lot of just one-on-one with citizens. That was a big part of the outreach for me.
I just want to point out that at the county commission level and the governor level, they said the same thing.
Yeah.
Talk to people and listen to their concerns.
So it's very important. So I want to make sure that we have enough time to take questions from the audience. If anybody has any questions they want to ask for any of our candidates, you just raise your hand and I'll bring the mic out to you.
It's Ted Jones. How much
time have you spent talking to the opponents?
I got into an argument with Deb Ross about whose dog was cuter at one point. And I have to say, my dog, but not much. I would run into people at forums and exchange a couple of words. So not as much as I probably should have. So, anyone else? You?
Actually, I'm in a very unique situation because my Democratic opponent lives 3 houses down from me, and I've known him for 10 years. So we actually talk a lot, and whenever we run into each other at events, we always joke, why don't we just start carpooling? But, and by having a previous friendship or relationship with my opponent, it does actually ease a lot of the assumed difficulties that you have with your opponents.
When I was running in Cumberland, like I said, I knew most of the people that I was running against. So we had a pretty good relationship. The nicest thing I heard from any of them, and we got along. I kept hearing, offline, they wouldn't say it in public, and they would say it, as an answer, but offline, I'd get these comments from them about, really appreciate you being in the race because you bring up a different level. I think one of them actually used the word integrity and all that. But, once we got on the stage, it was a little bit different. But in most of the races, I was, running an uphill battle. But, it's too often libertarians go into the confrontational mode and pick a local politics. When I say local, certainly in town and county commissioners, but even like the state legislature, you're running in a district that's in the community. And so, having a cordial, friendly relationship with your opponent. I finally remember when I ran for Congress against Renee Elmers, she never showed up at any of the forums, so it was me and the Democrat, and we had one thing in common, we were both retired military, so we talked a lot about that. I had no idea why he was a Democrat, being retired military, but we had a good conversation. This recent election, I met one of the 2 Democrats running in their primary. He lost, but because he wasn't the anointed one from the establishment, but we had several conversations. I wasn't invited to anything because it was a Democrat primary, but I met him on a couple of events. So, building that relationship, you can go knock down, drag out with somebody in a political forum, but you can have a beer together or coffee or whatever.
When I ran, I went to see the Republican a couple of times to try to convince him to get off the ticket, and he did not like me at all. But the Democrat, Butterfield, was very interesting. He came to 2 different debates, and he was coming board out, but he was coming, so they had crowds there. And they asked us a question on HB 1, and Butterfield said something, and the Republican said something. And my response was, imagine you're G.K. Butterfield, a mixed-race boy growing up in the 1950s in Wilson, North Carolina. And he kind of looked down and he shocked, And he is mixed race. I think it's a white grandparent or something. He went on the Colbert show, and Colbert's first comment was, I thought you were black. But I said, imagine if you were Butterfield, and you're going through town, and nature calls, and you need to use a bathroom. And you have 2 options at that point. One says white, and one says black. And some people aren't all white, and some people aren't all black. And it was a very conservative audience. And I said, I don't understand it, but some people aren't all male, and some people aren't all female. But discrimination is discrimination. And after it was over, his campaign manager came up to me and said, is it all right if we use that analogy in other places? And I said, sure it is. He said, he gave me his card and said, if we can ever help you, let us know.
Anybody else?
Sarah, I have one question. This is specifically for Christopher. You're one of the rare breed, an elected libertarian. How is it in the trenches, and are your libertarian ideas being heard?
Yes, Ms. Howell, they are being heard. It's very difficult, and you have to be strategic as to when you interject your libertarian ideals. because when it comes down to it, you are a representative of the people that voted you in. And there's a thin line that you have to walk between your libertarian principles and, on the other hand, what they believe in. The best that I have been able to do it so far is after the problem is initially presented and after discussion before we vote, I give my feelings towards the matter and how my principles relate to it. And if the public has voiced their opposition to the way I was leaning to vote, I will go with the my constituents. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is to any of you who have active campaigns now. This is a rather captive audience. How many of you have asked anyone in this room to help fund your campaign today?
Eric's asked it 3 times today.
Actually, yeah, as it is, obviously Matt's counting. I've already asked 3 times during this presentation. And I've talked to several of you individually and also asked for donations as well. And if I haven't asked you yet, that just means I haven't gotten around to you. And you will be hearing from me by the end of the convention. Like I said, I have no shame.
And I don't unashamedly make the pitch right now, but I want you to go to libertypoint.org, which is my website, and hit the donate button and hit the biggest number you can find. Because the money's going to go into the Wake County Victory Fund. And at some point in time, we're going to be spending a bunch of money putting out mailers, I hope. Because that's the one thing that I have not, all the campaigns I've run, to be honest with you, I have not raised money. I have gotten donations from people, and I've made the pitch, but I haven't made a concerted effort. But I'm so pumped up by this race that I may actually do that this time. So, libertypoint.org.
We're going to go ahead and actually open that up to a few other candidates to make a pitch.
Hey, I'm Clifton Ingram. I'm running for Congress in District 11. And, yeah. And I haven't raised a lot of money, and people...
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of me kind of wants to keep under the 5,000 just so I don't have to do all the paperwork. But if anybody wants to help me out with that, that'd be good too. I do need some volunteers for treasurers and such as well. But one curiosity that I had, and it might sound, I don't know how it'll come across, is there a way to make money legally as you're running a campaign? I mean, I swing a hammer, I'm a contractor, and I will go to work, but I wish I could work on my campaign more and somehow, like, either through music or, I know that, you know, some people make speaking fees. I don't guess we're there as a party as it is right now, but are there any suggestions for ways that you can meld your profession if you're not out swinging a hammer with your campaign? Do you have any suggestions for that?
My suggestion is well, you're running for a federal race, so the rules are different than state, but if you're in the state legislature, don't even go there.
Yeah, right.
Because we already have there's several sitting legislators that are under investigation for using campaign funds to buy suits and other items. Although the statutes are the financial reporting is so subjective to the whims of whoever's running the ethics board, that I wouldn't even go there. It's sad. That's one of the reasons why we have libertarians, most of whom have day jobs, and you know, have to work for a living, trying to run for office, when you have the current establishment party politicians that basically their job is the supposed part-time job in the General Assembly. And so, yeah, I wouldn't go there. Now, federals are different, but if you're running for state level, I don't even go there. Oh, because we're going to have 5 parties on the ballot. So you're going to have Greens and Constitution people potentially in November, and certainly in 2020. And so the establishment parties are going to start looking at us closer. You know, remember, they control the thing. So they run the Board of Elections and Ethics. They can conduct the investigations. So even though they have their own members who are under investigation, they should still go after third parties.
Brian, is that the first time in North Carolina history
For
that we're
what?
gonna have 5 parties on the ballot?
No, we
Yeah.
had 5 fighters before.
We have? Okay.
That's when they raised the signature requirement. Because the Socialist Party scared the crap out of the Democrats.
So to answer your question, I haven't figured it out. But at the same time, what Brian said was absolutely true. It can be a very, very slippery slope. So I know myself, I put in, between owning a business and running for NC House, I'm working probably about 75 hours a week right now. Almost every single day is a 13-hour day, and the way I look at it is I'll catch up on sleep and life after November.
Yeah, but if you get elected, it's going to be even worse.
I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
I don't, oh, never mind. I was gonna say for Tom, I'm gonna be running his website, so he is gonna have PayPal soon, so you can donate to him, so he can work for you.
I heard that you said PayPal. One thing I'm going to ask that you look at is Philanthro.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because to get, is it a state level or a federal level?
Federal.
Okay, so with PayPal, you have to buy the extra fields to get the employer and occupation and everything. And the way I did the math, unless if you're raising at least $1,500 a month, which for a federal campaign shouldn't be very difficult, it's not going to be worthwhile. So if you have to really do an honest look at how much you're going to be doing fundraising, and then figure out which credit card processing system is going to be the best for you, where you get to keep the most amount of money.
Thank you. Also for Christopher, are you married and do you want to get a beer later?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that was a yes on both.
Well, it's tough to follow that. But, from 3, 4, 5 of you, I would be curious, what do you consider your biggest misstep in your campaign or learning experience? What would you redo if you could?
Ooh, I left them speechless. Yeah. Okay, share your mic,
You never
guys.
leave Owen speechless.
I stepped in. When I first started the campaign for General Assembly, we had a lot of candidates for that time period in Wayne County, but I was just, let's go. And I started getting out on Facebook and Twitter, and I was calling my opposition No Hope Holly, hashtag. And she came to me at one point and she said, "You need to stop that." And I said, "No." But she was right. Until that point, people had been starting to know me for being a jerk. And I recognized that she was right. And later on, I went to her and I said, "Thank you for the best advice I've had so far." So you can reel back those things. Don't be a jerk.
So my biggest misstep was that originally I was running against a 40-year incumbent, and I had a good inkling that he was going to retire, but I still geared my campaign towards running against him instead of kind of keeping things a little looser. I invested somewhere in the vicinity of $800 of material that was more targeted if I was running against a 40-year incumbent instead of kind of waiting to see how the field played out. So I kind of blew a little bit of money that I shouldn't have. So far, that's my biggest misstep, but only hindsight will tell after November.
I'll say my biggest misstep, which I made several times, was the first, second, third. All the races I ran, basically, up to now, have been me. I hadn't had any support. Done it all myself. Did my own website. You know, what little money I raised myself. Did everything myself. And that's, you can't do that. If you, I don't care if you're going to raise $5 or $50,000. You need to have a treasurer. You need to have at least 3 other people that are going to be part of your sport team, besides your wife or spouse. And in my case, my spouse just kind of lets me do my thing. So yeah, don't do it alone. If you can contemplating running for office anytime in the near future, and you don't have a county organization, that's where you start, building a county organization. And then looking for people in that organization, or outside even. You know, I mentioned in Fayetteville, I had Republicans donate me money in an attempt to recruit me into the Republican Party, but that wasn't successful. But they gave me money because I was the only opposition. So don't be afraid. But again, don't do it alone. Build a team, at least 3 people, build your county organization, and take them on.
I don't want to talk about my mistakes because there's too many and we're short of time. But something Brian said, I'd like to point this out as state party chair and someone who really believes in the organization. Get support from your county organization. If you're a candidate, and when I was county chair, I would have people who run for office. I never met them. They never called, they never came to county meetings. This was when I went to Wake County meetings every week, unlike now. But anyway, and I never saw them. And then they would complain bitterly that they didn't get support from the party. So that kind of hurt. So get support from your county organization and the state organization. And if you're not getting support from a county organization, it's because it's not there. And so you have to grow it. You can grow it and campaign at the same time, but you're looking forward to the next campaign at that point because we have to have strong county organizations. I'm not even talking about campaigns anymore. I want strong county organizations because that's what's going to win us campaigns. Sorry.
I would just caveat what my dear friend Susan is saying. We do need to be county organizations. But if you're a candidate and you have a strong county organization, that's great. That's fantastic. The county can do stuff to support you. But even the establishment parties, even the dinosaur parties, they run candidates that run their own campaigns that get no support. Don't expect this because we're small, and just because if you're a Republican or Democrat that you get a lot of support from your party. It doesn't happen. The reality is, there are anointed candidates in the establishment parties that get all the money. I mentioned the Democratic primary in my county. The anointed candidate got all the money from the county party, and the insurgent got nothing. So that's the way politics works. Building a party organization is important because the county party can do stuff that a candidate to support a candidate. But once you have that, don't expect that they're going to help you. You got to run your own campaign.
However, if you are a Libertarian Party candidate and you can't convince, where's Ray? You can't convince the Libertarians in your precinct to get on board with your campaign, you have problems. Yeah. So that's really important. And Ray can tell you who the Libertarians in your precinct are. And he probably will.
So actually, I just wanted to take a moment and kind of change it a little bit. There's something that Brian said, Susan said, and also Olin had said. It is about the team that surrounds you. And I do want to say thank you to my team while I'm here. That's Gavin Bell, Alex Smith, and Jared Erickson. They're amazing. And by the way, when you make your donation, I'm not saying if, I'm saying when, you can see Jared Erickson. He is my campaign finance director. Thank you.
He's also a candidate.
Very true.
We have time for one last question. If there is one.
Or not.
Or not. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you everyone for coming out today. There is going to be a break before the gala. The gala dinner should start about 6 o'clock. We will need to leave this room because they're going to flip this room for our dinner. All the tables will be rearranged. For people who are candidates this year, you should have received an email from me at some point in time. We are doing candidate videos. If you exit this room and go down the hall to your right, it is the very last room on the left-hand side.